It's been almost 2 decades since we started our journey to educate and help you take action so you may better manage your financial future. Our goal is to help you accomplish your life's purpose. This podcast reveals financial tips, strategies, and insights that will help you to set your financial goals and guide you along the way. This is Managing Your Financial Future, brought to you by the advisors at Lucia Capital Group.
Oh, wow. Welcome back. It's season 8, I believe, of Managing Your Financial Future. Johnny Dean, your non-advisor type podcast host here with your advisor type, actual advisor, Professor Rick Plum, certified financial planner, professional. Hey, how are you?
Happy new season.
It is a new season. Now, from where we're sitting, it's a new year as well. We've been...
we also have a new studio.
So much has changed. Okay, so much has changed since the last time, if you've been listening to the end of our Season 7 podcast. And we do these a couple of weeks in advance. So we are in a new year. We are in a new building with a new studio. Actually, this is a temporary studio.
We haven't finished building out the new big Magna Quasi studios.
We haven't. So we're kind of in a, there may be a little echo here. I don't know. But we have a nice little setup, and we've started the new year with a new studio. We haven't been on since, it's been 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks, because we had to get this studio set up, and we've been moving. The Lucia Capital Group offices have moved.
We didn't first move in about 18 years.
We had been in the other location since 2003. So just about 18 years we were there, and we had an opportunity for a brand new, well, the building isn't new, but to have our own building.
Yes.
Standalone building. And so we took it. And so that means we had to move in about 6 weeks in order to get this. So we are here, lots to talk about. How's your New Year, by the way? How's your Christmas?
Well, we celebrated Christmas a little bit early because my daughter from West Virginia flew in for a wedding before Christmas, but they had to fly back just before the day before Christmas. So we kind of moved it up, and it was real nice. Except for not everybody could be there all day, like in a typical Christmas.
So you had people in and out? It
Yeah.
wasn't the Walton Christmas where you had 19 people all gathered around?
At night, we had everybody there, but we didn't have everybody there all day. But it was nice because the 2 grandkids were able to hang out together all day and play, and
because
all week.
One is all the way across the country, so they don't see each other.
Yeah, one's in West Virginia, one's in Southern California.
So what day did you celebrate Christmas then?
The Wednesday before Christmas.
Which was what, the 22nd, 23rd?
Sure.
Whatever it was. I don't even remember when Christmas was. That was so long ago.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. So,
and I will admit that on New Year's, I did watch the ball drop. Now, I'm on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And I watched the ball drop in New York. And then I went to bed.
Oh, you tuned into the East Coast feed. See, that's one of the pleasures, one of the nice things when you get older about living on the West Coast. You can tune into the East Coast feed, watch it, and then call it a night.
And partly because my son and I were getting up early on New Year's Day and heading out to go play in the desert. And
play in the desert.
We had fun.
You and your son.
My son and I, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Took some, off-road toys. And
did you do that on which day?
On New Year's Day.
New Year's Day. What did you do Christmas Day if you celebrated Christmas early?
Well, my daughter and her husband, who do not have kids, they came over. We had a nice little quiet day at home, and
but presents had already been opened a couple days earlier.
We saved our stockings. We do stocking stuffers.
Okay, so you did something.
We did a little bit, yeah.
How did you notify Santa that he had to be there a couple of days early?
They notified me. Let's be real.
I guess the grandkids are too young to understand that we're a couple of days early anyway. Well, that's good. Well, hey, fantastic. And now we're into 2022. I had big changes. Yes. First grandchild arrived.
Welcome to the club, sir.
That's right. Joshua Allen. I won't give his last name. It doesn't matter. It's not my last name. But anyway, he arrived on December 14th. I was hoping it was the 13th because my birthday's on the 13th.
Okay.
And my son-in-law's birthday is also on the 13th. We thought that would make it easy to have the trifecta, everybody on the 13th. He didn't quite make it. She went into labor on the 13th, but took it all the way to the 14th. So first grandchild, it's kind of cool. I mean, it really is to have. I was told that, it's all different and everything, and from being parents to grandparents, which is true.
Give it time, and it'll be a lot different. Right now, that he's just turned a month today or something of that nature. But you get to do a lot more things and then give them back.
Oh, I've already experienced that. You see, my wife went, and she was there, and they live in Las Vegas. So she went to Las Vegas and hung out for a couple of weeks the whole time, and she's loving it. She says, this is just like when this takes me back 30 years, and she's out there holding and I got there and I said, oh, this is great. And I'm holding him. As soon as he gets fussy, I said, here you go. I have lost... Maybe this happens to men. I have lost that ability, because when my kids were young, I walked around with them. I did what parents do. I don't have the desire or the patience, whatever it is. Love him, but I love him when he's good. and an infant, they're up and down. They cry. That's all they know how to do. And so the nice, wonderful thing is that when I'm there, I can hand him off to either dad or mom or my wife, grandma. And I can just admire him. So from that standpoint, it is really, really cool.
But once they get up and they start walking, once they get up and they can actually start playing.
Oh, and talking, throwing a football.
Throwing a baseball, riding bikes with you and doing things.
Yeah, that's all still to come. And the parents are looking forward to that as well. So anyway, that's that happened and that was good. So we're just kind of enjoying the new year. Yeah. It's funny to watch as I'm sure you did, your kids, to watch them going through the same thing that we went through 25 years ago or 30 years ago with them. It all kind of comes back.
I just think that, and maybe this is just us, but I think our kids have a lot more stuff than we did for the babies.
Oh, no question. Oh, man. The things that they tell them now, when my kids were born, you had to put them on their stomach.
Right. Oh, no.
But not now. See, before that, it was on their back. No. Flip them over. So my kids were on their stomach. Now it's their side or their back.
And no pillows.
No pillows. There are all kinds of rules that I didn't know about. But they've got these monitors with the videos.
Oh, yeah. You can watch them all day.
You can watch them all day. And, wow. This is really something. So things have changed.
So it's a little bit more expensive for...
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I don't think it was that much more expensive for my kids. But it was a lot more expensive for everybody around them.
Well, no, that is true.
Because the gifts, what you got for the showers, and what you're kind of expected to
they
have.
Had so much stuff.
The cribs are much different now. Obviously baby safe or baby safer.
They have pack and plays. Yeah, they all have to meet certain standards. My goodness, when I was born,
well, just the car seats.
Car seats. It really is. They have to be rated for a certain thing. There's a lot that you have to go through, as opposed to when I was born and my mom carried me, home in the front seat of our 57 Ford Fairlane in her lap.
Yeah, without any seatbelts on either one of you.
Nah, the heck with it. And my dad had the cigarette in his mouth. Look at him. Isn't he cute? Look at that boy. Hey, welcome to the pool world, son.
Then when you got 2 years old or so, you could actually go in the back seat and crawl up on that shelf behind the back seat.
We bounced around. The back seat window. You could lie there where the speakers were.
Warm.
Oh, it was great. Obviously, folks, we're going off on tangents here. Being in a new studio, I don't have any notes. I know what we're going to talk about today. Yes. I don't have any notes, but we're going to, if we're rambling or we're going off on tangents, that's just the way it's going to be for this show. We do have a lot of stuff that we want to talk about, things for the new year. But I wanted to get these sort of, personal stuff. Welcome back. It really is good to be back. It just seems like a long time. I think our last podcast downloaded or went out on the 15th of December, but we recorded it like December 1st. So it seems like it's been all the month and a half since we've been in studio.
Now that you joined the club, the grandparent club.
Yes.
Is the grandson going to grow up calling you grandpa?
We've had this discussion. Okay. I do not like, what the trendy one is Nana and Papa. Okay, fine. I don't do that. I'm not into that.
You're not into trends at all.
No. In fact, if you tell me it's a trend, I might go the other way. So I said, well, Grandpa's fine. I'm fine with that. And my wife said, well, Grandma's okay. But the German,
but the other side, are they going to be?
They're already Nana and Papa. They've had this is their 11th grandchild on the other side.
Okay, so that's where
they have 5 kids. Yeah.
That's where it comes down to, you might want to have different names.
Well, that's why. And so they're already that. And so I said, well, we can be Grandma and Grandpa. Somebody brought up the German word for grandpa is Opa, O-P-A, yeah. And Oma is, so it's like Ma and Pa with an O. And so it was suggested by a few people, well, why don't you do that? Because my wife, I have some German and all this stuff, and I speak it fairly well. So I might actually wind up being Opa.
Okay.
And my wife is Oma. Now, obviously, he can't call us anything yet. But, give it a year or whatever. So I think that's the direction we're going to go. I never asked you what they call you.
Well, my wife likes the term yaya. It's I think it came from one of the Indian tribes, and she's part Indian.
Like sitting in Lala waiting for my yaya, Lee Dorsey?
Okay. I was going to say, no, not Lala.
No,
yaya,
right.
And earlier we talked about Santa Claus, and years ago, there was a show with Tim Allen, a movie called The Santa Claus.
Yes.
And he's being interrogated by the police, and he's rattling off his names. Kris Kringle saying this, Popo Gijo. And ever since then, my youngest daughter has called me Popo Gijo.
Popo
Gijo? So basically, she's been calling me Popo for years, coming from that Popo Gijo thing. She thought it was funny and it stood for Santa Claus and all that. And so
I guess I should have seen the movie.
Yeah. But so my kids have been calling me Popo for long before they got married. And
your kids.
My kids.
Yeah.
And so they just have then turned that into the name that my grandkids call me I'm Popo.
Okay. And they're old enough now that they're speaking and they can do that.
And
so
on
that's
the other
good.
side, it's granddad. Not grandpa, it's granddad.
Okay.
And now I can't think of what they call the grandmother on the other side.
It's not grandma.
No, I don't think it is. But it's
anyway,
Popo and Yaya on our side.
Oh, that's cool. And so you had to arrive at that decision somewhere, or it just evolved?
Well, Popo evolved, and I didn't care what the grandkids call me. As long as they call me and they want to hang out, call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late for dinner, right? I mean,
right.
So fine, call me Popo. And my wife likes the term Yaya, so the kids are calling him Yaya, or calling her Yaya.
I've never heard that. That's kind of nice. That's pretty cool.
But she researched different, of her ethnicities, because she's done the DNA testing and all that. She knows what.
Yeah, I've done that too. So
she was looking at her background and saying, what were some of the names from her background? Like you looked at the German side of it, she looked at her side of it.
I don't have a lot of German. I'm mostly Scottish, Irish, but it just seemed like an appropriate thing to do because that's the culture I like. So anyway, I don't know. That was kind of apropos of nothing,
right?
But this is what we're doing now. We're in a new year, which means that we've got some new. I don't want to say there are things you need to think about. And let's just run down a couple of these quickly for folks. I don't know when you're listening to this. You could be listening to this in March for all I know. But one of the things that we like to tell people right off the bat in a new year has to do with their required minimum distributions. We're going from grandchildren to required minimum distributions. Well, I don't do transitional material on this show, as you folks may have noticed.
Well, last year, towards the end of the year, we did some tax planning tips, but they came out in December. Mm-hmm. And the year's almost over. It's hard to do any tax planning on December 15th.
Sure. Yeah.
And so tax planning, I think, should be talked about towards the beginning of the year when you actually have time to affect the issue towards the end of the year. Now, one of the other things is required minimum distributions. A lot of people figure they're just going to put that off till the very end of the year. And we've brought this up in past times. I think required minimum distributions need to be planned out at the beginning of the year and know when you're going to take them. I think it's important because some people will automatically meet their required minimum distributions just because they're taking money to live. Their required minimum distributions are X, but they're taking more than X out of their IRAs and 401k money just to live because that's their retirement income. Mm-hmm. So they don't have to worry about the required minimum distribution. Other people who don't necessarily need the distribution from the IRA to live, to meet their daily expenses, should start thinking about it early in the year rather than later in the year for several reasons. One is if we take it out now and we satisfy the required minimum distribution January, February, March, then we don't have to worry about forgetting about it. Because unfortunately, we see that happen. And I got a call just the other day in January. I missed my RMD. What do I do? This was not a client of ours. This is somebody outside of us and asking, I missed my RMD. What do I do?
Did you say how old are you?
Well,
if you're 72 last year?
Well, yeah, they were more than 72.
Okay.
They didn't have the postponement date available.
Okay.
So we talked about potential options for what they could do and how maybe they need an advisor to help them.
Well, that's not, I mean, we've said this before. An advisor, let's say anyone who's worth his or her salt, will tell you and remind you and say, have you taken your required minimum distribution for the year?
And how do you satisfy it and do things? So we want to make sure that we get it done before the end of the year, before the rush. You don't want to think about it right after Christmas and then call your advisor or call your place and have a hard time getting through to them and not be able to get it done.
Yeah.
So that's one reason to start doing the required minimum distributions early. Another reason is, now again, this is for people who don't need the distribution to spend. Those are the ones that are worried about their required minimum distributions.
Sure.
If you take it early in the year and you leave it invested, you can just, any growth that happens, if it happens to grow, is no longer in the IRA. Okay, it's not deferred, but if I'm growing it with stocks, I have a little bit of control over when I sell those stocks and when I realize a taxable event. So I can get a pseudo tax deferral out of it anyway. But when I do sell it, it's a capital gain, not an ordinary income item coming from the IRA.
Yeah, I think we should remind people too that when just because you're taking the stock or fund or whatever it is out of the IRA, it doesn't mean you have to sell it.
Well, yeah, a required minimum distribution does not have to be taken in cash. The IRA does not have to distribute cash to your bank account, a check to you. Right. It can distribute shares. Then it can transfer shares without you selling anything. If you had shares of, pick a stock, whatever one it is, you could say move 5 shares, 10, 50, and 100 shares, however many shares total up to the right value, move those from my IRA account to my personal brokerage account.
Yes.
That will satisfy the required minimum distribution. And the one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't do any payment of taxes on your behalf. And so you have to
right.
Come up with taxes somewhere else. Most people, if they're taking $10,000 out of their IRA, they'll have some amount of money withheld for taxes. They may receive a net check of $8,000.
So what you could do is, if you had a $4,000 required minimum distribution, and you say, okay, we'll take $4,000.
Or you could do give me $3,000 worth of stock, move it over to my personal account, and then take a $1,000 distribution and have it withheld for taxes.
And send it off.
Yeah, and you can do 100%.
Or take 5,000. Maybe I need 4,000. Take 5,000. Whatever it is, right. Whatever the number is.
Yeah,
and they'll do that for you. I mean, that seems to me to be a pretty good way to go.
I know some people. A couple of people I've worked with, they have much larger personal portfolios than IRA or 401k portfolios. Let's IRA all the way now. They're not working. They've rolled it over to IRA. So what they use their IRA for is their tax payments. They take a distribution of $10,000, $12,000 a month from their personal accounts, and then they take a distribution of a couple $1,000s a month from their IRAs.
For the RMD, you're saying?
Well, it'll ultimately satisfy the RMD, but they're doing it from the IRA, and they're withholding 100% of the distribution from the IRA. They're not getting it. They're sending it to the government. That's their way of doing tax withholding. They're going to owe $24,000 in taxes this year based on all the income and capital gains and interest and their Social Security. They got some pension money. They get all that check gross, nothing withheld. And they use their IRA just to pay the taxes.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's kind of on autopilot. And at the beginning of the year, we do an estimate. And
I like that idea. Anything where I don't have to think about it is something that I really like.
It's a nice idea. I mean, and so
okay.
Anyway, getting back to RMDs.
Yeah, early in the year RMDs.
But so if you're the type that's going to take an RMD and you're not going to spend it, what are you going to do with it? You're just going to put it in the bank, or you're going to invest it. If you invest it, any potential growth would be capital gains. And the other thing is, if you leave it in the IRA until the end of the year and it does grow, then your IRA is going to be that much bigger next year for next year's required minimum distribution. If you take it out now and it grows, that's not part of the IRA, so it helps you reduce the RMD potentially for next year. Well, not everything grows. sometimes it goes the other way.
It loses value.
And I don't know when stocks are going to go down, but they do from time to time. So if I take it out and invest and it goes down, well, now if I want to, I could sell that, realize that loss, and use that to help offset my income, rather than leave it in the IRA where I don't get any immediate tax benefit other than a little bit smaller RMD in the future.
So what you're saying is, if I take stock XYZ out in January at some point,
yes,
and I take $5,000, it's worth $5,000. At the end of the year, if somehow that stock went up to $6,000, I've owned it personally this whole time.
Right.
That gain is personal gain,
but it's not yet realized, so it's not taxable.
Yeah, so I don't have to worry about that. I can let that grow, and I don't have to pay any taxes on it. On the other hand, if I take $5,000 of stock XYZ out to satisfy my RMD in January, and by the end of the year it's gone down to $4,000, I've got a $4,000 loss. Now, do I still need to realize that, or there are things I can do with that?
Loss.
I don't mean one. Yes, it's worth $4,000. I have a $1,000 loss.
Right. You could do nothing, or you could sell it, realize that loss, and offset other income for that $1,000.
So it gives you options, in other words.
It does. And if you had that $5,000 stock, you took it out in January, and it grew to $6,000. Like I said, we've got a $1,000 gain that you can realize or not realize, but it's not part of the IRA. If you didn't take it out yet, you left it in the IRA and until December, and then in December you took $5,000 out, your IRA is just that much bigger for next year's required minimum distribution. Now, $1,000 isn't much, but we've seen some significant movements on individual stocks depending upon what you're using, and it could be a big number. And we're not talking about people with required minimum distributions of $5,000. We're talking about people that have required minimum distributions of $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 or more.
Wow!
And so the difference on just that amount could be $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 of difference in value. And so it could, up or down for that matter, it could be either way. So that's another reason that you want to start at least looking at and planning your required minimum distributions early in the year. Another is qualified charitable distributions. If you are charitably inclined, the time to think about charitable distributions is before you've satisfied your required minimum distribution.
Sure.
I know that I've talked to a lot of people, call in with questions, and at the end of the year, and we're talking about different things, and say, well, I've heard about this thing called a qualified. Can I do a qualified charitable distribution? Well, yeah, you can. But the idea is to help satisfy their RMD. They already took their RMD, in June, July, August, and they don't need to satisfy the RMD anymore. They just want to make a charitable gift out of their IRA, which is perfectly fine. It just works even better if you can get it to satisfy the RMD as well.
Yeah, and for those who we've talked about these, I think probably once a year over the last few years to remind people of this, but the qualified charitable distribution, or QCD, this is it allows you to take money directly from, let's say, your IRA, to the charity without you taking any possession of it.
And you account for it on your tax return as a non-taxable event. So let's say I have one of those $20,000, $30,000 required minimum distributions. Now, the reality is the amount of money you give to the charity doesn't have to have any relation to the actual number that the required minimum distribution is. It doesn't matter whether your required minimum distribution is $5,000, $50,000, or $100,000. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can take any amount of money. If you are age 70 and a half or older at the time you do this.
That's still 70 and a half?
It is still 70 and a half. Okay. You can have money sent directly from your IRA to the charity of your choice, and that will not be a taxable. You can do any amount you want, from $0 to $100,000. Even if your RMD is $5,000 and you wanted to give $100,000, you can do it, and that's not a taxable event on your tax return. So it doesn't affect your adjusted gross income. It doesn't affect how much of your Social Security is taxable or not taxable. Well, it's a great, if you are charitably inclined, set it up at the beginning of the year and say, well, when I go to church, I drop $100 in the till. So I'm going to give $5,200 this year over the 52 weeks that I go to church. Well, don't do it every week. Do a one-time distribution from your IRA and have it done.
Now, this is why we talk about doing this. Now, you said it's not a taxable event. Here's how people might look at this. Let's say, for people who itemize their taxes, it wouldn't. They don't look at this as a taxable event anyway. They say, well, I take $5,200 out of my IRA, right, as a required minimum distribution. Let's just say I'm going to give $5,200 to the charity,
Right.
So doesn't it wash out? I mean, I take $5,200. Yes, that goes on my tax return, and then let's say I can deduct my charitable contributions. So I give $5,200 and I deduct that off. It sounds to me, so if that's a wash, why are you telling me it's not a taxable event? Because wouldn't it not be a taxable event anyway? Let's just address that very quickly.
Well, the high percentage of seniors don't itemize. So that's one thing. So they get $300 of a front page deduction.
Yeah, big deal.
The other side of it is, for a lot of people, that extra $5,000 of income on their tax return before the deduction means that $4,000 of their Social Security that wasn't taxable before is now taxable.
Regardless of whether you gave it to the charity or not.
And then I get to reduce. So I take the $5,200 out of the IRA. My overall income is increased by that $5,200 plus roughly another $4,000. So my overall income went up by $9,200. And then I take a deduction of $5,200. It's not a one-for-one offset anymore.
No, you're going to wind up with.
It does, because it increases my adjusted gross income. It affects, if I'm itemizing, it affects how much my medical expenses I may or may not be able to deduct. It may affect my Social Security. It may be, on the other side of things, it may push me into an IRMA, income-related monthly adjustment account on Medicare premiums. I mean, nothing good happens by doing it that way. Yes, maybe it is a true one-for-one, but wouldn't it be nice to not even have to worry about that?
Yeah, for some people it may very well be, but why take that chance?
So planning your required minimum distribution early in the year gives you lots of options to be able to make things as efficient as possible for you as you can. And a lot of people, we get the call in December of, hey, I need to do my RMD. Well, you've been taking $1,000 a month or whatever the number is out of your IRA every month to live. Well, yeah, but they require me to take. You've taken out more than enough to satisfy your required. Some people think it's addition.
It's an addition to what they need,
right. And it's not a big number now. And it's even a smaller number this year than it was last year.
Yeah, they've changed the
tables.
The tables. Yeah.
The way you calculate a required minimum distribution is you look at last year's ending balance of your account, and you divide it by the life expectancy factor that the IRS has thankfully given us. They know how long we're going to live, and they say that you take the balance divided by a life expectancy factor, and that's the number. The resulting answer is the amount of money you have to take out this year. What happened was they've redone the life expectancy factors. So they're showing that we are, as a population, living longer, and so our life expectancies are longer, and we get to use a little bit longer life expectancy, which creates a slightly lower required minimum distribution.
The denominator went up, I hope. Did I say that right? The denominator? The bottom number went up? Right?
Yes.
The 1231 balance divided by the life expectancy.
Yes.
Whew, okay.
The life expectancy went up.
Yeah. Anyway.
And they have not changed these life expectancy factors since, I think, 2002. So it's, we're in the last 20 years, we've extended life expectancy a little bit, other than the last 2 years.
It could save you some. I mean, it's not going to be a lot, but
it saves more at the older ages than at the younger required minimum distribution. But at age 72, the old factor created about a 3.95% distribution. That's not a big number, really. I mean, if you've got $1 million IRA, that's $39,500. Yeah. And what the new factor is right around 3.65. So instead of $39,500, you get $36,500, $3,000 difference on that $1 million IRA for a 72-year-old. Now, each year, your life expectancy goes down a little bit. So each year, the percentage you have to take out of your IRA goes up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so this just means it's not going to go up quite as quick. But the tables are, you've got new tables, whether you're a beneficiary of an IRA, whether you're the owner of an IRA, and even people doing what we used to do a lot of 72T distributions.
Yeah.
Get to change their distribution if they want to.
So those people who are repaying under code section 72T may have a lower payment.
Or maybe a higher one. Because a lot of people that did 72T is commonly known as the way to get money out of an IRA before you're 59 and a half without a penalty. You set it up under a lifetime payment based on your life expectancy.
Yep.
Using these tables we're talking about, and then most of the time you don't recalculate. You're setting up as a systematic payment. People have seen their IRA balances actually increase, where they started with $500,000, $1 million, whatever it was, and it created a payment of X. Well, now the balance, because investing, the markets have done fairly well, the balance is a lot higher. And by redoing the payment, they can get a higher payment. And so they may be able to get, if you're doing a 72T,
that's true.
It could actually help you get a better payment.
Do we see a lot of 72Ts anymore? It seems to me we talked about those a lot 20 years ago. But.
We used to talk about them a lot more when the interest rates were higher, and the calculation allowed us to get
more
6 or 7% payout from the original balance. Now they're in the 3 and 4% payout range, and it was hard to make it work. Yes, we have seen them. I saw 3 of them set up last year.
Well, okay.
So it happens. But
yeah.
So this is the time of the year where tax planning is paramount, because you have time to affect it. This is the time of the year for planning your required minimum distributions, your qualified distributions. Can you make any changes that can give you a better lease on life, so to speak? I mean, can you do things to make your life easier, more efficient?
Yeah, there's really not, there's I don't think anything much you can do now to avoid your coming April tax bill.
Unless you're a business owner, you can do some retirement planning. Other than that,
but
you've got, can you do an IRA? Those are the basic ones. But yeah, by this point, January, your tax return that you're going to be filling in the next couple of months is for last year, January 1 through December 31st. Last year.
The door is pretty much shut.
Yeah. And in fact, I took a call the other day. Somebody was saying, I got my call and I had $2,500 withheld for my 401k. But they're crediting it towards 2022, not 2021. It was for the pay period that ended December 31st. I mean, it was for my pay period of December.
Yeah.
But it was paid on January 10th. And unfortunately, because and they're saying that means that I didn't get, that's $2,500 I didn't get into my 401k for 2021. Because I thought, they were thinking that because it was for that pay period.
It has to do with when the money actually given to you.
So they're gonna now they've got $2,500 in their 401k for 2022, and they can't make up that. So they wanted to put the full amount in for last year, but they didn't get the full amount in for last year, and so they were like, "Is that the way?"
Yeah, and it's not like you can add it. It's not like you can raise the full amount for. You kind of missed out.
It's a done deal. Yeah, but
it's not that big a deal, though, really.
Yeah, for people that want to save, and $2,500, that means that's $2,500 that they can't do for this year, because they thought that it was for last year. They would be able to do the full $27,000.
Yeah, what is it? Has anything changed on the 401k limits for 22?
401k limits went up $500. All
right, so they got 500 of it back.
Well, no, they didn't get the full 26.5 in last year.
No, yeah, but for this year, 500 of it. I mean, whatever.
So it went from 19,500 to 20,000. The age 60, well, that too, but the age 50 and older did not change. IRA contributions did not change.
Okay.
Simple contributions changed by $500. I mean, so.
All right, so you can put up to $20,000 into a 401k. Is that right?
20,500, I think. I have to go look. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 20,500 with
a
$6,500 catch up.
Okay, we don't have our notes, but yeah. Okay, so 20.
So now's the time, if you're in a 401k and you're wanting to max it out for the year, make sure that if you're not going to be 50 this year, find out what the number is, divide by the number of paychecks, and say that's how much I want withheld every paycheck. If you are 50 or older this year, that number I know, it's 27,000.
27,000, easy. You can put as much as 27,000, and those are your contributions. If you have them matched, they can.
Well, yeah, the match
that can go.
That.
Beyond that. So
I don't know if they match all the way up there.
Well, no, they don't. But I'm saying if you put 27,000 in contributions, and your employer put in, I don't know,
hey,
4,000.
Free money is free money.
Free money. You can do that. So the limit on the 401k does not include the match. Let's just say.
No, it does not. And so I call it free money. It's not free money. That's your employment contract. That's money that they are willing to pay you for doing the work you're already doing. Mm-hmm. Don't deny them from paying you what they want to pay you. Get what you're worth.
Oh, I wish somebody told me that when I was 23. I still remember saying, nope, not going to do it.
Was there a match back then?
I don't know that there was a match, but I didn't do the 401k at all.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was. I was 22. He said, hey, listen, this company's got this thing called a 401k. Oh, what is that? Well, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to,
take money out of your
deduct a
paycheck.
certain money from your paycheck.
No. Yeah. No chance.
But you don't understand. I want the money. What, $100 out of my paycheck? What are you, nuts? Get out of here.
Not even that, probably.
It probably was. I think it was $50. I don't even know. It doesn't matter.
But what this podcast, what we're talking about is now is the time for planning for 2022.
That's the point. Yes. And if you
RMDs are a starting point for anybody who will be 72 or older or who has a beneficiary IRA.
Yeah. And even if you don't know what to plan for 2022 or for any year, and a lot of people don't, they don't know what to look for. Talk to your advisor. This is, again, where an advisor can be invaluable if they know the questions to ask you and they can say things like what you have said during the latter half of this podcast, which is, think about QCDs. Think about taking your required minimum distribution now. Plan. Look at your withholding. Are you withholding enough? I mean, all this stuff that
how do we withhold the right amount? When you're retired and you don't have a paycheck and you don't have anything withheld from your paycheck, do you really want to do quarterly payments? I personally don't like doing quarterly payments.
No.
That's why I set up that one guy to do the money from his IRA.
Well, see, that's another way to go. And some people pay them all ahead of time. I mean, there are different ways to do this stuff. I like the simpler, the better. But to have an advisor looking out for you who can do this kind of stuff, and by the way, who enjoys it, which is where you come in, Professor Plum.
Puzzles are wonderful to figure out and make a beautiful picture.
I may have to ask you this in our next podcast because we're really out of time here. But our next podcast, I may have to ask you how you got interested in this stuff. I mean, some people find money just completely confusing and boring, and even as important as it is, things like tax planning and all that. But maybe we'll talk about that next time.
It all stems from a 4-letter word:
math. Oh.
See, math is consistent. It has rules.
Well, that is true.
English has rules, but they tend to change.
They're broken. They change. And nobody cares. Math, you cannot say 5 times 5 is anything but 25. You could try, but you'd probably be wrong. You'd probably be incorrect. You need the help of an advisor. This is what you can do. You can get in touch with Professor Plum. I know many of you people already have. We have a lot of your clients that enjoy listening to this program. In fact, a couple of them asked us. That's why maybe for today and over the next couple podcasts, they said, "Can you give us more personal stuff about you guys? We've been listening to you guys for years.
A lot.
Well, we have today, so maybe I'll try to throw some of that in. We tend to get into the topics and we like to talk about things like that. But maybe for this season we'll try that. Anyway, you want to get to know Professor Plum. You want to get to know things about tax planning and all that. It's a good idea to give him a call. Actually, any of the Lucia Capital Group advisors. Professor, you are, as we've said many times, you kind of oversee everybody's financial plan within the firm, right?
I get to be the go-to for all the advisors when they have questions. And
you had one just before the podcast. I tried a half hour ago earlier to do the podcast. You had somebody with, it was a really intricate question
that we don't run into very often.
No, but it's a good idea. And they said, well, I'm going to check with Professor Plum because I'm not 100% sure on this.
Well, and they were 99.9% sure, but that 0.1.
That'll bother you. That'll bother you because there's a chance I could be wrong. So just to get the verification. So you can check with Professor Plum. Go to luciacap.com if you haven't already. Find all the resources there, or you can give him a call at Lucia Capital Group, 800-644-1150. Again, any of the advisors at Lucia Capital Group can help you out because they're all kind of doing the same thing. Use the same the bucket strategy and all that stuff because it's all overseen by this guy right here, Professor Rick Plum, 800-644-1150, or as I said, go online at luciacap.com. We thank you for listening to this podcast, Season 8. If you need more information on this, you really should subscribe and get it automatically downloaded. Spotify, that's where you're going, is Spotify, and they'll take care of all that for you. You won't miss a podcast, and you'll get all this wonderful stuff that you're going to hear here in Season 8. So we thank you all for listening. It really makes it worth it. When you have listeners, Professor, so much better than talking to yourself,
Well, right now it kind of seems like we are because we're in a little room, but
It's out there.
It's nice to get feedback afterwards, too.
It really is. So if you have nice things to say, direct them to Professor Plum. How's that?
Oh, yeah. Direct the nice things to John Dean.
Exactly. All right. For our Professor Rick Plum, Certified Financial Planner Professional, I am Johnny Dean. We will be talking to you next time in just a week or so. It is Managing Your Financial Future, and we'll talk to you again really soon.
The information provided should not be considered specific tax, legal, or investment advice and is not specific to any individual's personal circumstances. To the extent that this material concerns tax matters, it is not intended or written to be used and cannot be used by a taxpayer for the purpose of avoiding penalties that may be imposed by law. Each taxpayer should seek independent advice from a tax professional based on his or her individual circumstances. Different types of investments and/or investment strategies involve varying levels of risk, and there can be no assurance that any specific investment or investment strategy will be profitable for a client's or prospective client's portfolio. Thus, investments may result in a loss of principal. Accordingly, no client or prospective client should assume that the information presented serves as a receipt of or a substitute for personalized advice from LCG or from any other investment professional. You should always seek counsel of the appropriate advisor prior to making any investment decision. All investments are subject to risk, including the loss of principal. This material was gathered from sources believed to be reliable. However, its accuracy cannot be guaranteed. IRA withdrawals will be taxed at ordinary income rates. Withdrawals prior to age 59 and a half may also be subject to a 10% penalty tax. Examples cited are hypothetical, are for illustrative purposes only, are not guaranteed, and subject to potential federal and state law amendments. There is no guarantee that you will achieve the results discussed or illustrated. Before investing, carefully consider a mutual fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. To obtain a prospectus or summary prospectus, which contains this and other information, call your financial advisor. Read the prospectus carefully before investing. The information provided is based on current laws, which are subject to change at any time. Lucia Capital Group is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency. Social Security rules can be complex. For more information about Social Security benefits, visit the SSA website at ssa.gov or call 800-772-1213 to speak with an SSA representative. Rick Plum is a registered representative with and securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, and member FINRA SIPC. The investment professionals are affiliated with LPL Financial and are conducting business using the name Lucia Capital Group, a separate entity from LPL Financial.